Welcome back to the Deconversionists, everybody. It's so grateful. We're so grateful to have you here and be a part of this show with us. We're having a lot of fun as we're journeying through different topics week after week. Ultimately, removing the con from your conversion. Hopefully, that is what we're here for. Me and my co-host Elliot Christopherson is in the house. What's up, Elliot?
Yeah, all right.
I just came home from a crappy day at work. I hate this season. I don't mind Christmas. I just hate the season because of my job delivering packages.
Yeah.
And it just gets higher escalated. And then like, especially in up north in PA here, it's just real icy all the time. It's snow and cold. And then you're out there longer because of it. And so, yeah, it's kind of a crap.
Well, you've got literally one of the worst jobs for the Christmas season. I think it's a competition between you and the UPS guy.
Yeah. Well, we got the extra added bonus of mail. So, we're stopping at every box and like, at least we're trying to. And like, there's several times today where I'm like trying to stop in the ice and just, well, guess they're getting their mail tomorrow.
Well, that and they put a second guy on the UPS truck for the holidays, and you clearly don't have that.
No, we don't have that. We don't even have a seat for a second guy. So,
and you've got to sort your own mail in the morning, right?
We got to sort our own mail in the mornings. And truck always shows up late at our office. It's so annoying. Well, we have two trucks. So first truck's half the time shows up late. And then we start at 8. All the trucks are supposed to be there beforehand so our clerks can distribute it. But our second truck's never showing up till like 9:30, 10. So we're just like standing around twiddling our thumbs. Super annoying.
And right now that the guy who was late on the truck, he's probably not even home yet. And when he does get home, he's going to be pissed off too.
Yeah. It's not even his fault.
Can you believe that mail carrier?
Yeah. Right. But anyway, I'm home and I'm warm now and I'm happy. Everything's good. So
till tomorrow.
And then tomorrow's another day. But hey, I get off this Saturday, which is kind of a rarity right now because we only have 2 subs. And
wow.
So anyway, I'm kind of happy. I'll have a Saturday off. It'll be nice.
All right.
But that being said, I think we should roll into our topic. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about it, Elliot. From what I understand, we're going to be talking about why Christians don't actually believe what they say they believe.
Yeah,
and topic.
This has the most potential to piss off a true believer in the Christian faith. But it needs to be talked about anyway, and then they need to be confronted a little bit, at least so that they can do some introspection later and maybe analyze what they claim they believe in a more deeper way.
Well, if you follow our previous shows and all the comments, we're doing an effective job pissing them off already. So I say we just keep going.
Yeah. So today is the challenge. If you're a Christian and you're actually listening to this, think about it a little bit. Like, maybe tell us why you think you have a true belief level of this wild story. Because I'm going to give you the evidence for why I don't think you actually do. So, should we take it from the top?
Let's take it from the top. This is very interesting.
Now, I know you and I came to this conclusion separately. Maybe you got there a little quicker than I did, because when I read your book, I was like, wow, okay, because I read it late. And I had come to that conclusion that Christianity, the belief in Christianity, is more like an addiction than an actual, like, true belief. And so when I saw that you'd come there, on your own, but through a separate way, I was like, wow, this is amazing, because I had just come up with it, and I'm like, I've never heard anybody use it before, and here's this guy who wrote basically an entire book on it.
Yeah. So when I heard you say the same thing, I was like, whoa, that's cool. Yeah.
So I came to this conclusion last year in the lead up to the election. And this is not a political show, and I do not want to get into politics at all. But that was the catalyst that made me think, you know what? With all this propaganda on both sides and all this fighting, and the fact that nobody ever changes their mind or switch sides ever, pretty much. I mean, there's some outliers out there, and they make a big public show of it that, like, yeah, I used to be this and now I'm that, because of the evidence. Like, that almost never happens. And I just couldn't understand why, until the thought occurred to me, like, maybe these people just don't really believe what they're saying, because there's so much stuff out there leading up to the election. There's so much, proof and rhetoric and all this stuff, then people can get their positions completely disproven and dismantled with what are apparently facts, and they just won't change their mind. They just keep on supporting their candidate no matter what they do or what they say. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think these people actually believe it. Because if you can prove something to someone and they don't even care at all, something else is going on here. So I immediately like compared that to my experience that I've had over the last 7 years of after I left Christianity and became an atheist. I've had countless conversations with Christians. I've argued with them, I've debated with them, I've tried to have pleasant conversations where we just talk about it, and not a single time, like maybe once, but basically the rule is that they are impacted by what I'm saying, not even a little. They just don't care. I'm like, okay, you claim this is a true belief for you, and this affects your entire life. You claim you build your entire life around it. You claim that this is more important than anything else because we are only here on Earth temporarily, and when you die, you're going to be in the afterlife eternally. You make those very bold claims, and then you don't really care that it's true or not when I give you facts that you've never heard before. Like, what is going on? Like, you don't even want to look into it a little bit. Like, before I go any further, like, has that been your experience as well?
Uh, yeah, by and large, it has been, and yeah, even the ones that are willing to continue dialogue, they'll go to a certain point and eventually no longer want to keep talking about it because they don't want to. You're right. They don't want to evaluate the new facts. They don't want to evaluate the data that pushes them outside their matrix. Um, so yeah, and I mean, certainly it's uncomfortable, but I think it's only uncomfortable when you have a belief that's unjustified and and you don't want to know that that's the case, because if you discover that that's true, then you've been living a lie. And that's a scary place to be. It's a lot easier when it comes to data you can actually evaluate, and this is the problem with faith that we've talked about, is when you're just trusting things that you don't have any evidence for to begin with, then any evidence that comes up to oppose it, you can just, like we said last week, whatever goes, just doesn't matter. You just put your hands up, you stiff arm it. I just have faith, and you just want to hold on to it. But you can't do that in the real world. You can't do that in reality. When you have evidence and that evidence is demonstrated to no longer be good evidence because you have new evidence, you're much more apt to be like, oh, okay, well, this was the reason I entered this the first place. It's clearly not right anymore, and so you switch gears. But it is very similar to an addiction, as you were talking about, because I know when as a smoker, I have a friend right now who is a smoker and keeps claiming, yeah, I want to quit. I want to quit. So I've given him Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Smoking book, or Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And I said, look, this is magic. It'll work. Refuses to read it, will not
Hmm.
read it, because when you have an addiction, two things happen. One is you're deeply afraid what will happen if you quit, because you don't know how you'll live without your thing, your substance, your whatever it is.
Right.
And and so you think this idea is, well, if it gets me to quit, am I going to have this desire all my life? And that's what I keep trying to say. No, you're not. It's going to take away those desires. But then that's the second fear is, but I kind of do like it. So do I really want to quit? And so there's this constant tension in the mind of the addict. So I think that's also what's happening in Christianity.
Hmm.
It's addiction to, um, uh, it's kind of like a trauma bond, right? You're addicted to that sort of relationship, and it's really scary and hard to let go of. Um, and there's no evidence for it. Obviously, it's my invisible friend. You know, you can't really introduce them to anybody. You talk about them as if they exist, just like you would a girlfriend that doesn't actually exist. But there's no upside. You can never say, well, no, look, here's open the door, and there he is. You can't do that. There's absolutely nothing but what you claim about this person.
Yeah.
So there's a, what do I do? How do I live without this? And it was hard when I got out. That was one of the biggest challenges for me as a Christian, as an ex-Christian, was how do I live without this person that I used to think was there, that I would talk to, and they would supposedly help me with my problems. And and that was hard to come to grips with the fact that I was literally just talking to myself, and that's just crazy. Like,
Right.
but then it starts to build your confidence. And you're like, I actually got myself through that. It was me, right? And so anyway, that's a
Yeah.
lot I said, but yeah, that this is all leading into it. But go ahead, get back on track. I apologize if I took you down a rabbit trail.
Yeah, we're kind of giving our conclusion before we show our work.
I'm good at that.
Because that's what I got to eventually was something else is going on here.
Sure.
But what I want to talk about first is something probably not a lot of people have thought about very much, but it's this idea of there are two levels of belief. So there is a true belief level where you're absolutely convinced that something is going to happen. So, for example, like if I have a shopping list and I am planning after work on going to the grocery store, like I know I'm going to do that. That assumption, that prediction, whatever that is, like that is on a true belief level. Like it's going to happen. I planned for it. Like I made my shopping list. I've got my money. I'm going shopping. Like I absolutely believe that's going to happen. Okay. I think that there are a lot of abstract concepts that exist in our head that don't actually exist physically in the real world and are not things that we can engage in the same way that we're going to the grocery store. We entertain these ideas and we pledge allegiance to them, and they dictate certain aspects of our life, like how we're going to vote or whatever. But they're ideas. They're abstract concepts. Um, they're things we believe in, but we don't believe them in the same way that we believe we're going to the grocery store today. So God does not exist in the real world like another person would. Um, like I believe I'm married because I mean my wife is right in front of me. Like it's a true belief. I don't think that believing in God, believing in Christianity is a true belief on the same level. I don't take God to the grocery store with me. He has almost no impact on my actual day-to-day tasks. Like I can live my entire life without once interacting with God, without once um, praying or doing any of the things that we do when we go to church. I can just live my life and my life will look exactly the same. I know some Christians might say, well, maybe you're not engaging in sin, so it is affecting your life. Well, not really. I mean, let's just take our basic tasks, survival tasks for the day. Like I get up and punch my, turn off my alarm. I take a shower. I go to work. I punch the clock. Like I work my shift. I go home. I go to the grocery store. I watch TV. Like I do all of these things. I eat dinner, and God is not with me or impacts any of them whatsoever at all. God is an abstract concept that exists in my head. It's this idea that I pay homage to on a whole different level than how I'm actually living my life and doing what I need to do to survive. Like I don't take God to the grocery store to help me pick out groceries. I don't ask him what I'm going to have for dinner. I don't I don't do anything with God that actually impacts the core of my life. I just live my life. Even if you're a Christian, you just live your life. And then you go to church on Sunday, you go to prayer meeting on Wednesday night, you pray and read your Bible in the morning. Like you're paying homage to something that doesn't exist in the real world. It's a sideshow.
Like
It's
you're adding something to your day that is not essential.
that doesn't impact your day. It really doesn't. I know a lot of Christians will say, well, if I didn't read my Bible and pray every day, my life would fall apart. Would it really? How would it fall apart? Would your car break down? Would would you not be able to pay your bills? I mean, let's just be real for a second. God is an
You would
abstract concept.
you wouldn't find your keys after praying and God doing a miracle.
Right. Yeah, we wouldn't have answers to prayer. Okay. Well, do those answers to prayer really impact your actual day-to-day life? I mean, you say they do, but I mean, you can't prove that. I mean, look, my if my next door neighbor is an atheist, like he's not using prayer to get through the day. He's just not. He's having mostly the same experiences that I'm having during the day. He's just living his life. Like God's not here. It's not on a true belief level. It's
Right.
it's on a mental state, abstract concept, idea level that I acknowledge. No. So that's kind of where I would start with it. Um, Before I get into the actual evidence that I believe I can prove Christians don't actually believe it. Like, is there anything you want to add to that?
Nope, no, keep going.
Okay. So I can actually prove that you as an average Christian don't actually truly believe in any of this stuff. So one thing that I get from a lot of Christians when I talk about these things is that one of their defense mechanisms that kick in immediately is they accuse me of knowing God exists and suppressing the truth. Well, I see that as projection. If you believe something that's just an idea, it exists in your head, and you can't prove it, and you can't present it to somebody, then one of your defense mechanisms is to just tell the person is to use projection and tell the person, well, you know deep down it's true. You're just suppressing it. Okay, well, you're exposing your own insecurity that you can't prove it, so you accuse somebody else of already knowing it. Like, wow, you don't have to do any work at all. Like, maybe the Christian deep down knows that God doesn't exist. Maybe they're the ones suppressing the truth, that they don't actually have a real God out there. And so they want to accuse the other person of the same thing because deep down they're insecure about it. Like, maybe they know deep down it's not actually true. When the chips are down, when they're at the moment where they're about to die, on their deathbed, maybe there's something in there that tells them, hey, you know what? This isn't real. This isn't true. You've been living this your whole life on the hope, that hope you throw into the afterlife. Like, come on, man. You're faking it. So that's one indicator. That's not proof, but it might be some little psychological evidence. Like, maybe if you're a Christian, you're watching this, maybe that stings a little bit. Maybe you realize that, maybe deep down you don't actually believe it, because we see this in church all the time. This need to keep reaffirming your belief. Go altar call comes up. Maybe you became a Christian at 5 or in your teens, and you claim that you're saved, born again, Jesus is your savior, but something, it really bothers you. There's some guilt there. You're like, oh, I gotta go forward. I gotta get on my knees again. I gotta reaffirm my belief. Like, why do you keep doing that to yourself? Like, what guilty conscience are you hiding, that you say, well, it's because God's convicting me of my sin, some sins I did today that I need to ask forgiveness for? Maybe it's actually deeper than that. Maybe it's this little gnawing, you know, thing that's telling you, I don't really believe it. Deep down, I just can't get the rational part of my brain to accept the irrational. So, I mean, think about that next time you feel guilt when you're in church. Maybe you don't actually believe it on a true belief level. I don't think that the rational part of a person's brain can allow them to accept things that they just deep down know just can't exist in reality. So think about that for a while if you're a Christian.
Yeah. Interesting. The real honest Christians that I talk to the most um, that say you can't prove one way or the other whether God or the supernatural exists. We have no way of demonstrating it. I, I appreciate that honesty, but when I hear that, it shocks me that they are willing to embrace something as true without any evidence in its favor. If you can't demonstrate it one way or the other, why would you hold to something prior to having evidence? You should withhold belief until there is some.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical to just say, "Hey, there's no evidence for this. I'm going to believe it." In what other area of life do we do that?
Well, the vast, vast majority of Christians did not come to this belief later on in life after examining the evidence and the arguments. There are Christian testimonies out there that will say, "Oh, I used to be an atheist, and then I got convinced by the evidence, or I listened to some Christian apologists, and they proved it enough, or I just couldn't deny it anymore." Yeah, there's a few like that, but they're the exceptions to the rule, and we know that it's a rule because they're the exceptions. Like,
And
an exception.
I don't actually believe that that's what happened. I think they think that's what happened, but I bet you if we press it a little bit, we could get to the bottom of why they actually got tricked
Right.
into believing.
A lot of them, something went wrong in their life, and they were at a really low point, and they were looking for any answer to get them out of this. And somebody came along, maybe, and said, "Hey, come to church with me," or "You need to read this book," or something. I mean,
Yep.
there's 100 different possibilities here. Most Christians were born into this, were tricked into this, convinced into this, brainwashed into this. They didn't come through rational reasons. They came because they were manipulated very early on. They believed first, and then later, when the doubts came, they looked for that evidence, and they got some really bad rhetoric from an apologist or a pastor or an evangelist or a missionary, and they're like, "Oh, okay," and they got that little pat on the head, and they reassured themselves that, "Okay, I am right, I am right," and then they go around and say, "Oh, there's good evidence for this," like that, but that's not how you got there in the first place. Like you're supposed to, get good reasons before you believe, not come for bad reasons and then look for good reasons later.
Right.
So yeah, if you are accusing the atheist of knowing deep down that God exists, like maybe that's just your way of that's a defense mechanism because deep down it's not real.
Well, and a lot of times one of the arguments I will get is, but I did come for good reasons. God changed my life for the better. He freed me from this or from that, or made my marriage better, whatever. And so there's a moment in their life that made their life better, and it's associated because of the group they were with or what they were reading at the time, or whether it was the Bible or another book or hanging out with Christians or going to church. And then they associate it and say, it must have been this. And so they make this false connection because the timing was right. Um, and and then it's hard for them to break free of that because they can't fathom any other reason why this would have happened.
Hmm.
Um, and so they get drawn into it, and it feels good, and so they say, but this is a good reason. Okay, I can understand that concept. Like, something good happens, therefore you think you have good reasons to believe it was such and such. But better to say, hey, what if it was something else? Are there any other explanations? And maybe you find better reasons. You find something else that makes more sense, that once found could be more productive in your life, even now, currently, if you realize what it actually was, so you could keep reproducing those results instead of just getting lucky ones and saying, it was this, you know?
Right. Maybe I should run through these quicker because I got a lot of them.
All right.
So number two is if they really believed in hell, they would be terrified of getting the message wrong for themselves. So hell is another abstract concept that exists in their head. They've never been there. They don't know for sure it's out there. They just claim that they believe it. But it's my prediction that if God actually sucked them out of the world and took them to the lake of fire, and they stood there right on the banks of it, and they viewed this thing that is just burning lava. They saw it for themselves, and they knew that people were going to be put in these permanent bodies that can't die, and they're going to be thrown into this thing, and they were just going to roast forever with this screaming and gnashing of teeth and be tortured for thousands and millions of years for eternity future. And they really, got this in their head as a real thing, a real place. This actually exists, and it is horrific, exactly like they preach to people. They would come back from that, and that's all they would be able to think about in their daily life was this place out there that billions of people are going to end up in and be tortured forever. Like it is actually real. If they saw that and they knew for a fact, and it was a true on a true belief level, they would go through their entire lives absolutely terrified, completely horrified that somehow, in some way, like they got the message wrong. They believed incorrectly something little detail about the gospel. They didn't get it right. Or maybe Jesus isn't going to accept them because maybe they weren't sincere enough. Or that same guilt they get when they go up to the altar call, and they want to repent of their sins again. Like they would do that every hour. They would be absolutely freaking terrified, and they would spend every moment of their day both thinking about it and trying to convince others that it's real and not that you don't want to go there. I don't see that. I don't see any Christian living like that. They use this rhetoric about, oh, don't, better choose Jesus or you'll go to hell, but it's not real. They're not acting like it's real. It's just a conversation starter or a rhetorical trick or a carrot and stick thing. They would be witnessing to everybody about, oh my God, I saw this real lake of fire where you're going to burn in, and but they don't. Hell's just not real to them. It's not real in the same way that, I mean, a really good analogy is like going to war and seeing combat. Like combat veterans come back all fucked up. I mean, can you imagine like being on Omaha Beach and having to think about that for the rest of your life? The blood and the guts and the terror. You know, if if they saw hell for real and they were like, "Holy shit, this is as real as Omaha Beach was to these war veterans," like they'd have PTSD from seeing hell or knowing it's real. And I don't see that. I don't see that. No, no, nobody's sure. People, a lot of them go around afraid of hell and they secretly tell you that, but it's just not. It's not on a true belief level.
Makes sense.
A really big one is they don't live out their faith. Look, you have been given by Jesus and by Paul, the New Testament, specific commands of what Jesus wants from you. You know, Jesus gave everyone presents, and the assumption for most Christians is this applied to everybody afterwards, like all Christians until he comes back. The Great Commission: go throughout all the world and preach the gospel. Are you doing that? You're living the same life as any other Christian, and especially if you're in America. You're not witnessing to people. You haven't gone out into the world. You're not a missionary. You're not an evangelist. You're not fulfilling the Great Commission whatsoever. And you're going to make excuses about, well, that's why we pay missionaries to go and do it. That's why we send others. But what about you? Like, you don't think it applies to you? You don't think the Great Commission applies to you? Wow. Okay. So you're not
Right.
living your faith.
Yeah,
And
my family believes, in addition to that, that Jesus is coming back any minute. And so we better be out there telling everybody about Jesus. And yet, sometimes I'll find them, after Sunday church going to a damn picnic. They're at a picnic playing
yeah.
volleyball. And I'm like,
And are they witnessing to the people around them at the picnic?
oh,
I mean,
they're all
there's other
Christians. They're
strangers
all
around.
Christians.
Well,
They're
if
all
they go to the park,
Christians.
because we used to have potlucks at the park. Well, did we have our lunch at the park after the church potluck and then walk around the park and witness to people?
No, in this
Absolutely
case,
not.
they go to the people, a person in the church's house, and they go to their backyard and they play volleyball. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you? That's, I mean, it just doesn't add up. It's not what you see the gospel in the Bible. They're all suffering for preaching the gospel, and they're trying. They're walking on foot. They're going 2 by 2. They're intense about preaching. Not going to
Yeah.
picnics, movies, and sitting around having potlucks. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Like that's a Sunday for them, and it's not doesn't just stop at the Great Commission. It's every little detail. So Jesus told the rich man that came to him, "How do I inherit the kingdom of heaven?" And he said, "Well, I've kept the commandments." And Jesus is like, "Okay, that's good. That's not enough. I want you to sell all your possessions, give it to the poor, and follow me." Was that just for that one dude? Or was that like an example of maybe what he wants from you? Did you sell all your possessions, give it to the poor, and follow Jesus? Oh, no, we don't do that because that was for a different time, or that was for disciples, that was for apostles. No, no, we don't have to do that at all. Like, you don't even pretend to do that. I mean, how much do you give to charity? Like, you just live your normal life. Um, Also, Paul says not to be of the world, like separate the things of the world from the things of the Christian life. Like, what do we see? We see Christians, especially in America, getting heavily, heavily involved in politics. Politics is almost more real to them than their own belief system because it actually exists in the real world, and the gospel is just an abstract concept. So they get heavily involved in politics, even though God specifically said to not get involved in things of the world. But the early church lived completely different than what we see in America. Like they lived together. It said, isn't there like a verse that almost sounds like communism? How they they all live together and to each his need. Like in a commune. Like we almost never see Christians living in some kind of Christian community in a commune where they all share their worldly goods to support each other and worship God all day together. That doesn't happen. Um, Another one is Paul specifically tells women in the church to cover their heads when they pray. I like to pull this out and confront, fundamentalist evangelical Christians with this because none of them do it. Like I don't know how they can just rationalize that. Oh, Paul said to cover your head when you pray if you're a female in church, and they just don't do it. Like I mean, completely ignore it. Never even think about it. Like wow, this was an explicit command. Well, they don't want to. Well, they don't like. Oh, I wouldn't don't want to do that. No, it's weird.
well, they say it's cultural. It was cultural for the time.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so everything else Paul said was cultural too, huh? Okay, so you don't have to follow anything Paul says; it's just cultural. Paul
It's
also said,
arbitrary, yes.
Yeah, Paul also gave advice. Now, the caveat is he said this isn't from God, this is from me. But shouldn't you follow Paul's advice? I mean, he was the apostle that did the most to create Christianity. So I think his advice counts for something. He says, "Don't get married, stay like I am, and live for God instead." Well, man,
So,
that don't happen at all.
so I mean, as a full preterist, I can tell you that, in my opinion, there are really good first century timing reasons for those passages and how I could have demonstrated that they don't apply anymore because they were first century because everything was fulfilled and done. But the point you're making stands because most people aren't full preterists and
Right.
most of them don't take the time to evaluate the text and actually understand why it doesn't fit in our time but it only did in the first century. um, they still believe everything applies and just don't do it, and that is the point you're making. Same with the point I was making with Jesus is coming any minute. I didn't think that as a full preterist, so I had no problem going to a picnic. I have a problem with someone going to a picnic who thinks Jesus is coming in a minute and believes that they are entrusted with the Great Commission.
Right.
That's a contradiction. And this is the point you're making. Most Christians do not live or don't actually believe what they say they believe.
Yeah,
Correct.
they're not. You're not. If you're not living your faith in any way that I can recognize as an atheist who's watching it from the outside, then what reason do I think? What good reason do I have to believe that you actually believe this stuff on a true belief level? Very, very, very few reasons except your word. Another one is I don't want to bring up a social issue as a distraction, but it's just a fact. When it comes to abortion, we have a huge pro-life movement in this country, and most of it is backed by their faith. They are showing that they do not trust God with the souls of unborn babies. They are trying to essentially beat God. Like these children, a lot of Christians believe that these children that are being murdered by the millions through the abortion practice, most Christians believe that those the souls of those dead babies are innocent and they're taken straight to heaven by God. Now, whether that's true or not, that's a debate, but it doesn't matter. Like you're not trusting God with this at all. Like you are working to outlaw something instead of just leaving it to God. So I mean, you can argue with that, but it's just another data point. Another one is belief is a really big deal to Christians. Like you have to believe this stuff. It exposes the fact that they know deep down that they don't really believe. Like everything is affirmation. Like you believe, believe, believe. Like belief is the key. It's like when you make that your biggest talking point, it kind of exposes what your own problem is belief, and you know this deep down. It's like that Shakespeare quote. Um, I think he doth protest too much, like the guy who is obsessed with what people do in their own bedroom might have skeletons in his own closet. So whenever Christians just go at this belief thing, you have to believe it. You have to believe it. Belief is the key. Like, why is this so important to you? Is it maybe because like you're exposing your own insecurity again? Like maybe you don't really believe. Maybe you're trying to by doing this with other people to convince them to believe. You're also trying to convince yourself to believe. Is that what's really going on here? Like it makes sense to me. Um, got two more. I want to see if we got time to hit them.
Yeah.
One is unanswered questions do not bother them at all. They hand wave them away like a child with an invisible friend, or they invoke magical solutions like God knows. If they actually believed, then the plot holes in the Bible, the plot holes in the stories would actually bother them. But it doesn't bother them at all. Like a really good one. I was arguing with some people online this week, and it's so frustrating, and I'm just going to stop doing it. And I brought up the inconsistencies in the Gospels, which is going to make a really good episode in the future here. But I mentioned, you know, you need to read the accounts of the empty tomb in a row. Read the count in Mark, Matthew, Luke. I'm not sure if John has one, but just read the first three, the synoptic gospels. Read what happened. Like when they went to discover the empty tomb, like who went? How many went? What did they find when they got there? Each story is different, not completely different because it results in an empty tomb, but who discovered it is different. Who went there is different. What they found was different. And it you can't read this and think that these are consistent stories. And I tell this to Christians, they just don't care. They just dismiss them. It doesn't matter. The story is the end of the story is the same in all three. So the details don't matter. These are serious plot holes because if you have three different accounts that differ in their facts, in their details, then you have three different accounts, and it can't be from God if it's all different. But Christians don't care. Like they just wave it away. And every time I bring up, a problem, an unanswered question that they can't answer about their theology or about the Bible, they just dismiss it right away. Just no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you really freaking believe this shit, you would care. You absolutely would care. If it's true, you would care that there's problems, and they don't. Like, okay, well then you don't actually believe it. And the last one is really interesting, very curious thing. In neuroscience, so fMRI is basically functional magnetic resonance imaging, and they do this on the human brain, and they do studies where they ask people questions, and then they watch for what part of the brain lights up to see what area of the brain is being activated. Now, neuroscientists have been able to isolate the part of your brain that activates when you are asked a question and you are answering it versus a different part of the brain that lights up when you are asked, what does a third party believe about this same thing? So the human brain can differentiate between what I think versus what someone else thinks. And so they put people under these fMRI tests, and they've asked them things like religious things, religious questions, and the part of their brain lights up for their opinion. And then they say, okay, now what does God think? And God is a third party; He's not them. So the part of their brain for a third party should light up, but it doesn't. When you ask someone what God thinks, the same part of their brain that is answering for themselves is where the God statement is coming from. So this exposes that God's ideas, God's opinion is no different than their own opinion, as if they know that their brain subconsciously knows that God's not real. It's me who's talking. So that's a really killer data point for this idea that you don't actually believe there's a God deep down on your subconscious level. You just believe it's your opinion. When you talk for a God, or what you think God thinks, it's just coming straight from you.
Do you have the research on that?
I can find it, and I can like
Send it to me, and we'll put it in the
I
link. In
yeah,
the info.
I can cite it. Yeah, you can put it in the link, and then I can also cite it on our next live, so people know for sure that that's a real thing.
Perfect.
Um, those are my evidences for why I don't believe that a Christian has a true belief level of belief when it comes to God versus a true belief level they would have for something like the fact that they exist.
Right. And you
Um,
and you could argue out any one of or five of those points, and you still have the other ones remaining.
right.
You still have issues to contend with that demonstrate that you don't actually believe what you say you
Yeah,
believe.
it's a cumulative case. It's a cluster of different data points. You can fight on any one of them, but when you put them all together, kind of building a good case here that you don't actually believe what you claim you believe. And like I previously stated, like I don't think that the rational part of your brain can allow you to accept things that are irrational on a level that you actually believe them. You can claim to, you can affirm them, you can engage in all kinds of ritualistic practices. And so my conclusion is that this is not about belief. It's not about truth. It's Christianity is about ritual. It's about community. It's about your tribe. It's about superstition. It's about wishful thinking. It's about false hope. It's not actually about something real that you actually accept. And I've got two more things to say. Um, this is an interesting one. So there's a guy out there. You can Google this. It pops right up. First hit. A former pastor. And while he was still a believer, he decided that he would run an experiment. He would try to live a year without God. So just type in on Google for anybody watching "A Year Without God," and his article will come up. I believe he might have actually written a book in the aftermath of this. He decided that for 1 year he would stop praying, he would stop reading the Bible, he'd stop going to church, he would live as an atheist, and he would see how his life changed during that year. And his prediction was that his life would fall apart very badly because he's living without God, and God's going to break fellowship with him, and things are going to go wrong. And this is an experiment that you can run as well. Anybody can do this. And at the end of that year, he realized that his life hadn't changed at all. Erasing God from his life didn't cause any calamities. It didn't cause any changes. He just lived his life, and his life was normal. And this resulted in him abandoning the belief in God and becoming an atheist. Very interesting. So what I think happened is he got rid of the drug. He suffered through the withdrawals. He got clean, and he realized he didn't need the drug anymore. That's all it was a drug. Which is the premise of, I think, the premise of your book is that Christianity, faith is a drug, and you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to say to Christians after all this is, there are true Christians out there. There really are. True Christians are ex-Christians because they cared if it was true, to the point where they found out it wasn't, and they could not be Christians anymore. The only true Christian is an ex-Christian because they cared.
Wow. All very good points. And I hope that if you're watching and you're a Christian, that you will take into consideration these points, if not all of them, the ones that apply to you, because I guarantee you some of them do. There's no doubt about it. So, and we are going to even put this, we're going to put feet to this for you in just a couple of weeks. On December 21st, we're going to be having a Christmas special. That's Sunday, December 21st at 2 p.m. And it's going to be a live episode. We are going to have on here a mentalist. His name is Mark Chiachira. Some of you have met him from previous shows, but he's actually a mentalist. And we've never actually done the show with his skill set. This time we're going to do it. He charges for this all around the country. He's world renowned. He's got magicians that come to him for consulting from different parts of the world. He used to work for Disney. He even worked for Answers in Genesis at one point in time. This guy knows his stuff. And he is going to be on the show, and he's going to demonstrate to you that he can make you believe things that aren't true. And so we hope that you'll join us. In fact, we are going to be taking volunteers that want Mark to manipulate them, so that you can have this experience and perhaps open your eyes to what is happening to you in Christianity and in your faith, whatever your religion may be. So I want you to be on the lookout for it. I'm going to be promoting the show pretty soon. If you're interested, we're going to let you know how to contact us, and you're going to have a chance to be a part of the show on the 21st if you want to be. And so you'll have a chance for Mark to talk to you directly. You'll actually come on the live with us for a portion of it, and you'll rotate in and out however it works out. It's going to be a really awesome interactive show, a good Christmas special for everybody. So please be a part of this. Please plan on doing it. Clear your schedule now, because you do not want to miss this. It is going to be awesome. It is a rare opportunity to experience a mentalist live like this for free, and be a part of it. So that's it. That's our show today. And as I said, we're putting legs to it on December 21st with Mark Chiachira, a mentalist. So be prepared for that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I'm super excited. So that is 2 Sundays from now. So that's it. That's our show today. We are the Deconversionists, and every Christian has their own version of Christianity, as we have seen many, many times. We're here to unravel the con in your conversion. Have a great day, everybody.